Chapter 96 of Married Thrice to Salted Fish. Xinjiang Hall was where the rightful emperor handled government affairs. It was where he met civil and military officials. Its very name spoke of diligent attention to state affairs and love for the people. Every word spoken in the hall of Xinjiang Hall could determine the national economy and the people's livelihood, the rise and fall of the Dayu. Once Lin Qingyu had stood in this hall as an imperial physician to diagnose the pulse of the late emperor. Today, he was still standing here as an imperial physician. The person he faced was the prime minister, the eunuch, and the emperor. These people wore the uniforms of their office, the python robes, dragon robes, while Lin Qingyu only had a white robe and a fox fur coat. There was nothing on his body to connote a powerful official. He looked nothing more than the handsome son of a scholarly family. However, it was this powerful minister who seemed not at all like one, who now stood unbridled in front of the emperor, acting willfully. In front of the emperor, he declared bluntly that he would take the life of the one closest to the emperor, the one the emperor trusted the most. Lin Qingyu issued his order once again. Take Shirong down. The two guards looked at each other, embarrassment reflected in each other's eyes. They were members of General Gu's troops, and they have always been loyal to the Gu family. But this was a son of heaven. Even with no real power, he still sat on the dragon throne. Even Imperial Physician Lin had accorded him courtesy before. Why was he completely disregarding etiquette for the emperor and his ministers now? This was serious enough to be considered rebellion. Before the two could move, Shao Jie, who stood in front of Shirong, said loudly, "You dare do this?" Lin Qingyu said, "I do." Nanan Hao too felt that Lin Qingyu was going too far and reminded him aloud, "Imperial Physician Lin, no one wanted what happened to the provisions. Even if His Majesty miscalculated, it was an unintentional mistake. Being so disrespectful to the Emperor, are you not afraid that His Majesty would punish you?" Yes, I am the Emperor. You can't talk to me like that. You can't harm my people." Shao Jie was a little hysterical. "I want to punish you. Come, take Lin Qingyu down. Beat him to death." Once he said these words, Shao Jie's words turned weepy. He never thought of taking Lin Qingyu's life, but Lin Qingyu wanted Arang to die. Arang can't die, so Lin Qingyu had to die. He didn't want to do this, but he really couldn't help it. As long as Arang was fine, he didn't want to care about anything else anymore. "Your Majesty," Li Chan knelt down resolutely. "Eunuch Shi is indeed under suspicion of collaborating with the enemy. Imperial Physician Lin wishes for His Majesty to listen to his words to rid the Emperor of evil ministers." He was carried away with his words in a moment of urgency. Xiaolian sneered and said, "It is not his place as a fifth-rank imperial physician to rid the Emperor of evil minister, especially when we have yet to prove who is trusted ministers and who is a sycophant." Lin Qingyu looked quietly at Shao Jie. The last traces of pity and kindness in his eyes suddenly disappeared when he uttered the words, "Beat him to death." A thought suddenly popped into Shirang's mind. Lin Qingyu now entertained murderous thoughts towards Shao Jie. Shirang had no doubt that Lin Qingyu wanted his life. But before this, Lin Qingyu probably never thought of killing Shao Jie. He would die, Shao Jie would live. Lin Qingyu and the Empress Dowager could completely control Shao Jie and thus control the entire Dayu. Once Shao Jie died, only Shao Li remained with the blood of the late emperor. None of the civil and military officials, none of the frontier soldiers would take a dullard as their emperor. If they insist on supporting Shao Li to rise to power, not only will the brothers of the late emperor begin to scheme, even the northern border may make a move. Therefore, it was essential to Lin Qingyu and the Empress Dowager's plan that Xiaojie live. But at this moment, Lin Qingyu truly wanted Xiaojie to die. This wasn't how Lin Qingyu normally reacted. Lin Qingyu was about to lose control, and Lin Qingyu's loss of control was exactly what he wanted to see. Standing behind Xiaojie, Shirong bent down and said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, did you mean what you said just now?" Xiaojie was in a trance, not daring to look into Lin Qingyu's eyes. He bit his lip until it turned red. Lin Qingyu looks down on the emperor and has committed rebellion. His crime is unforgivable, and he deserves to be executed. Shirong's lips curled up. He clapped his hands and said, "Master She, this minister is here." Except for Lin Qingyu, everyone turned towards the voice at the same time to see a solemn man striding in. This man was dressed in a black tunic with a sword tied to his waist. This was the leader of the Tianji camp, Xie Min. Xie Min knelt down on one knee in front of Xiaojie. "Greetings to the emperor." Shirong said, "Did you hear the emperor's order clearly?" Xie Min nodded slightly, stood up, and drew his sword, holding it in his right hand. The words "Diligence in State Affairs" written on the plaque hanging within the hall reflected on the surface of the sword. Step by step, he approached Lin Qingyu. "No!" Li Chan raised his hand and blocked Xie Min's way. "Imperial Physician Lin has the token of the Tianji camp granted to him by the late emperor himself. He is your master." Xie Min was expressionless. "The Tianji camp serves only the emperor. Master Li, please step aside." Li Chan looked back at Lin Qingyu, only to see him staring at the sword, his eyes hidden under his long butterfly wing lashes. No one could possibly guess what he was thinking. Li Chan was very quick-witted, and he shouted to the two imperial guards, "Go and call the Empress Dowager." A greasy voice sounded. When was it ever an outsider's place to issue orders regarding the affairs of our Shao family? Xiaojie's ninth imperial uncle, King Heng, appeared at the doors of Xinjiang Hall, followed by elite soldiers he had secretly transferred from his fief to the capital. From now on, unless the emperor gives the order, no one can step one foot outside of Xinjiang Hall. Xiaojie said in a daze, "Ninth imperial uncle, why are you?" King Hen glanced at Lin Qingyu, snorted coldly, and said, "I have come late with my protection and caused the emperor to be frightened." In desperation, Li Chan knelt down again. Your Majesty, please think of the soldiers in the northwest, of the people of the Dayu. Just as the Imperial Physician Lin said just now, the fact that the demon commander was able to find Shirong to negotiate peace shows that this person is intimately familiar with the situation in the capital. If there is a change in the palace at this time, we will fall into his trap. With the demon commander's tricks of manipulating people's hearts, he will definitely take advantage of this void and disturb the morale of our army. Until matters in the northwest are settled, no upheaval may happen in the capital. What are you talking about, Assistant Minister? Shirong said with a smile. What change to the capital could there be from executing a 5th rank Imperial Physician? Li Chan said, Imperial Physician Lin is the wife of General Gu. If the general were to find out that the Imperial Physician Lin died in the palace, Shirong let out an "oh," then downplaying the matter said, Assistant Minister, there is no need to worry. The Emperor will not let General Gu know before General Gu regains Yongliang. Li Chan was sweating profusely. He was running out of opinions. Could it be that Lin Qingyu really wanted for blood to spill in Xinjiang Hall today? Shirang's pupil shrank suddenly. Master Xie, what are you waiting for? From out of the corner of Li Chan's eyes, Xiaomin's grip around the sword hilt tightened. Still, Lin Qingyu showed no response. He couldn't help shouting, Lin Qingyu! As soon as the words fell, Lin Qingyu raised his lashes, looked at the man holding the sword in front of him. He said slowly, Master Xie, just now you said that you only serve the emperor? Xiaomin said, that is right. If the Son of Heaven behind you was not the one recognized by the late emperor, if he was not the one mandated by heaven, would you still obey his orders? Xiaomin paused. What do you mean? I was the same as Li Chan before. My concern was to keep the status quo in the capital lest the Shishya gain a chance to take advantage of it. I wanted the soldiers in the northwest to have nothing to worry about. Now I understand. Lin Qingyu looked coldly at the pair of brothers, Shirang and Shao Jie. He said, only when those who get in the way disappear completely can the capital be truly stable. Shirang's face suddenly changed color. Lin Qingyu is insidious and cunning. Do not give him the chance to confuse people. Xiaomin, do it. Lin Qingyu said, Eunuch Shi, why are you so anxious? The late emperor gave me the token of the Tianji camp. Even if it is not enough for Master Xie to serve me, it should at least afford me time to finish what I have to say. What do you say, Master Xie? Xiaomin hesitated for a moment. What exactly do you have to say? Just now, Eunuch Shi clapped his hands and Master Xie immediately appeared. Lin Qingyu mocked. I won't be following suit. Saying so, a rough and resounding voice came from the direction of the door. Make way, make way. What are you doing blocking the door? King Han was being jostled from behind. He turned around and said angrily, Who is it? The newcomer apologized and said with a smile, My apologies, Ninth King. There is a bit too many people in your entourage and they have filled up all the space. I have no choice but to position the Imperial Guards and the men from the cavalry camp around your people. King Han was so angry that he was letting off a chill. He dropped his obsequious tone. Wujan, you brought so many soldiers into the palace. Are you trying to rebel? Wujan asked back. Then, why did King Heng bring so many soldiers here? Naturally, it is to protect His Majesty. Wujan laughed loudly and said, Then, this general is here to protect His Majesty as well. But the Emperor this general wishes to protect is not the unjustly named Emperor Chu Shi, but the late Emperor. What utter nonsense! His Majesty is the true son of heaven appointed by the late Emperor, righteous and true. I think you are colluding with Lin Qingyu and orchestrating a rebellion. King Heng spoke firmly, but he couldn't see Shao Jie and Shirang's reaction. Shao Jie knew how he came by the throne and he panicked. Arong? Shirang forced himself to calm down. Don't be afraid, it's all right. Wujan stopped smiling and said seriously, Bring him up. An imperial guard pushed a grey-haired man into the hall. The man knelt in front of Lin Qingyu, his head lowered. Imperial Physician Lin. The voice wasn't deep like an ordinary man's, but rather sharp and reedy. Shirang guessed his identity as soon as he heard it. Could it be? The man raised his head slowly. Shao Jie had a clear view of his face, and he said in astonishment, Eunuch Xue? Xue Ying, the eunuch in charge of administration during the late emperor's reign. He had served the late emperor for many years. When the late emperor grew seriously ill, Xue Ying suddenly chose to retire and returned home. There had been no news of him since. Wu Zhan said to Xue Ying, "Eunuch Xue, do not be afraid. Tell us everything you know. This general shall protect you." Xue Ying glanced at Xiamen. When the late emperor was seriously ill, he wrote a will and handed it over to the servant. He tasked me with keeping it safe and to announce it to the world when he passed away. Xiao Lian said, "What nonsense! I saw the late emperor's edict with my own eyes. The late emperor proclaimed His Majesty as his heir to continue his great line. If you had an edict entrusted to you, why didn't you present it at that time? Instead, you waited until today to put on the sham." Xue Ying said as though delivering a recitation. Back then, King Ning was supervising the country. He had the power of the government and the people. The late emperor was forced to write the imperial edict establishing him as crown prince. When the late emperor's mind cleared, he regretted his mistake and issued a second edict. When the previous emperor passed away, King Ning ascended the throne. If the servant had taken out the edict at that time, would it not have spelled my death? Color returned to Li Chan's face and he asked, "Where is that edict now?" This servant escaped from the palace and hid the edict behind the plaque in Xinjiang Hall. Xiamen raised his hand towards the plaque and struck it with his palm. The plaque shook and a sealed imperial edict fell down, which Xiamen caught firmly in his hand. Xiamen looked at it and said solemnly, "This is indeed the handwriting and seal of the late emperor." Xue Lian suddenly turned to Shirong. "How is this possible?" Shirong laughed, a wild expression on his face. "Did Imperial Physician Lin foresee this day long ago, and that's why you forged a copy of the late Emperor's will?" "Shut your filthy mouth," Wu Zhan scolded bitterly. "Even Master Xie says this last edict was written by the late Emperor himself. What else do you have to say?" Xiao Jie's legs went limp and he almost fell down. Shirong held him up. "Could it be that your so-called late emperor's edict was to appoint the sixth prince as heir?" It was like Shirong had heard some great joke. The late emperor is so wise and powerful. How could he hand over the Dayu Empire to a mentally incomplete prince? Xiamen shook his head. "The edict states that the former crown prince Shao Cheng is the only candidate to inherit the throne and that it cannot be abolished." Li Chan immediately said, "The late prince's concubine mother, Chen Shi, once committed the great crime of deceiving the emperor, but even then the late emperor simply banished her into the cold palace and did not implicate the late prince. It showed that the late emperor had high hopes for the late prince. The late emperor never expressed his intention to dispose the crown prince in front of everyone. How could he just suddenly dispose him? There must be more to this matter." A chill came to his heart. Shirong took a few steps back and said in a low voice, "It's not over yet." Xiao Jie cried and pulled him to a stop. "Arong!" Shirong suddenly shook off Xiao Jie's hand. Pointing at Lin Qingyu, he said, "King Heng, Xiamen, what are you still doing? Do you believe his words? When the late emperor was seriously ill, the Empress Dowager and Lin Qingyu were the ones who stayed by his side. They were with the late emperor far more often and for far longer. They were the ones who forced the late emperor to write the edict. You want to lay a hand on him? Then hurry up and stop talking rubbish." Wu Zhan rubbed his fist. They wouldn't let me go to the northwest to fight those Shishya barbarians, and I have been suffocating for boredom. Ninth King, where did your soldiers come from? It's time to test their mettle. King Heng looked back. The cavalry battalion and imperial guards had already formed an impenetrable ring around them. They outnumbered his soldiers 3 to 1. They were waiting at their ease for an exhausted enemy. They had no chance of winning. At this point, the truth of the matter was no longer important. Being able to make it out of here alive took precedence over everything. King Heng cleared his throat and said, "The late emperor was my brother, and so of course the late empress' last wish must come true. Shirang, Shaojie, you two persecuted the prince first. You conspired to usurp the throne from behind. Even death cannot atone for your offense." Shirang's hands lowered slowly. His eyes were empty and his face held a deathly stillness. Wujan shook his head and clicked his tongue. "He certainly changes his stance faster than the weather." Shaojie grabbed Shirang's arm. Choked up, he said, "Arang, Arang, please say something." "What else can we say?" Shirang said numbly. "The winner is the king, the loser is the enemy. Ajie, we lost." We are not going to fight?" Wudan said regretfully. "I was so excited for nothing." Shaojie said blankly, "Lost? What will happen now? Will you die?" "I don't want." He rushed to Lin Qingyu. He wanted to grab onto Lin Qingyu's clothes, but then he met Lin Qingyu's eyes. What would happen to his hands? He didn't dare reach out. "Imperial Physician Lin, don't kill Arang. I beg you. Please don't." Lin Qingyu slowly opened his lips. "You're begging me?" Shaojie nodded like he was pounding garlic. "I'm begging you. I'm begging you. If our military plan fails because this batch of provisions cannot reach the army, our men will be defeated by the Shishya." Lin Qingyu's voice trembled slightly. "Do you think the Shishya will spare the lives of those defeated soldiers?" Shaojie suddenly froze. Wujan sighed. "Provisions, oh provisions. No matter how powerful the general, he cannot fight without provisions." "I won't kill him right now," Lin Qingyu said. "I will keep him alive, and when the Northwest Army triumphs, I will behead him as a sacrifice to heaven." Shaojie's eyes widened and he kept shaking his head. "No, no." Lin Qingyu walked to Shirang's side. In a voice that only the two of them could hear, "I gave you a choice. I told you that if you two didn't listen, I will have someone else take your place. I wasn't kidding." Shirang looked straight ahead. "If I hadn't done anything, once Gu Fuzhou came back, I would have lost my life regardless. I don't regret it." Lin Qingyu said lightly, "Not necessarily." Shirang snorted lightly, obviously not believing what Lin Qingyu said. He finally looked at Shaojie, who had tears streaming down his face. He said softly, "Leave him alive. He doesn't understand anything." Lin Qingyu made no comment. He raised his hand and 2 imperial guards stepped forward and took Shirang away. Shaojie was heartbroken. Heedless of everything, he scrambled after him. "Arang!" Wujan blocked his way and asked Lin Qingyu, "Imperial Physician Lin, what should we do about him?" Lin Qingyu said, "The emperor is tired. Help him back to the palace to rest." Xie Men frowned. Although the late emperor's decree was to protect the first crown prince's position, the previous crown prince has already passed from illness. "Master Xie is right," King Han said in a fair and just stone. There is no one from the lineage of the late emperor who can inherit the throne, and Shao Jie, who conspired to usurp the throne, must not be allowed to continue to rule. According to the Daoist rules set by our ancestors, an heir can only be chosen from the clan. Lin Qingyu said, "Did the North King forget about King Hui? Is this some kind of a joke? King Hui is mentally incomplete. He is like a 3-year-old child. How can he rule the country? At least King Hui won't pretend to be smart. Moreover, he might not be without the possibility of a cure." Lin Qingyu changed the subject and said, "Matters in the Northwest are in a critical juncture. Today's matter must not be made known to the public. You are all pillars of the court. You should all know clearly what is to the people's benefit and what is not." After this day, Emperor Chushi said that he had taken ill and would not be attending court. Instead, he began to simply issue letters to instruct the court. The running of the government was left to his cabinet. In addition, Prime Minister Xue Lian made it clear that he wished to retire, and after gaining the emperor's permission, he left, taking his family with him far, far from the capital. King Heng was also condemned to return to his fief, barred from entering the capital without an express order. Lin Qingyu and Li Chan exhausted everything they had to send that batch of supplies. It should have supported the Northwest Army for a long time, but now only 20% was left. Li Chan was anxious to transfer more provisions to the Northwest, but the roads were blocked by heavy snow. The original journey of 7 or 8 days would take half a month, and he didn't know whether it would be able to make it in time. After eradicating the dissidents, this was supposed to be a time when he could relax a bit. But a layer of indescribable fear had settled over Lin Qingyu's heart. He was plagued by nightmares for several nights in a row. In his dream, he was back in the Nanan House mansion, standing in the courtyard of the Blue Wind Pavilion. He held a crimson umbrella, a vast expanse of snow under his feet. He saw the familiar wheelchair and Lu Wancheng seated in it, dressed in red. He was sleeping peacefully with his head down. He stepped on the snow with bare feet, dragging the hem of his wedding dress. He walked towards Lu Wancheng, step after step, using the umbrella to shield against the falling snowflakes. At this moment, Lu Wancheng's face suddenly turned into Gu Fuzhao's. He desperately stretched out his hand, the umbrella falling onto the snow-laden ground. But no matter what he did, he couldn't reach the person in front of him. Lin Qingyu sat up in shock. Huang Tong, who was on night duty, heard the movement and hurriedly brought a lamp over. "Young master?" Lin Qingyu was momentarily dazed. He raised his hand to touch the corners of his eyes, feeling a bit of moisture. "Is it snowing outside?" "Yes, it's been snowing almost the entire night," Huang Tong said worriedly. "Young master, are you all right?" Lin Qingyu lowered his eyes slowly. "I'm fine." It has been half a month, and he yet to receive another letter from Gu Fuzhao. After a year of separation, no matter how deep the affection, only a solitary shadow was left wandering, their meetings confined only in dreams. But now he didn't even dare to dream. Now, past the 12th lunar month, in the northwest, the wind blew harder and the snow fell harder than it did in the capital. The army's ration and fodder consumption increased day by day. The 20% provisions that Shen Haoshi desperately protected was only a drop in the bucket. In order to stabilize the morale of the army, Gu Fuzhao concealed the fact that they had been robbed of their provisions. Apart from him and Shen Haoxi, only Wu Youyan and Shi Pei knew about the supply shortage. On that day, Shen Haoxi, fighting 1 against 100, managed to escape with 20% of the provisions. When he returned to camp, he was seriously injured. Fortunately, Huji's miraculous skills brought him back from the brink. Gu Fuzhao originally wanted to send Shen Haoxi to a safe place to recuperate, but Shen Haoxi resolutely refused. Imperial Physician Lin asked me to follow and protect the general. Gu Fuzhao smiled and said, "Why are you so obedient to my wife? Do you like him?" Shen Haoxi hurriedly said, "I'm not. I don't. The general is the pillar of the country, and I have admired you for a long time. Even without Imperial Physician Lin's order, I would have still chosen to serve the general." Seeing Shen Haoxi so flustered, nearly jumping out to prove his innocence, Gu Fuzhao pushed him back on the bed. "I'm just kidding. Take it easy. Even if you like him anyway, I don't mind. There are many people who like him, but he only likes me." Gu Fuzhao chuckled lightly and said, "I appreciate your kindness. Why don't you go somewhere safe and take care of yourself first? You can come back once you have fully recovered." Shen Haoxi shook his head. "I want to stay in the northwest to recuperate." "What's so good about the northwest? The chill wind is like a knife. Each day here makes you look aged 10 years. Shen Haoxi was silent for a long time and said, "I have been to many places. My body is like duckweed and my life like a piece of grass. Only in the northwest have I felt really alive. I saw my brothers die in battle, saw innocents die in vain. I realized that all those things in the past, whether it was Jing Chen or Shao Cheng, they are all ephemeral, like fleeting dreams." The sudden movement of soul baring made Gu Fuzhao raise his eyebrows. Shen Haoxi has been in the northwest for a year, and he's never mentioned the past, nor did Gu Fuzhao ask about it. What surprised him the most was that Shen Haoxi was able to mention Shao Cheng's name so calmly. If his beautiful wife was present, he would surely be surprised as well. "Since you mentioned Shao Cheng, I have a question that I would like to ask you," Shen Haoxi asked. "Ask me anything, General." Gu Fuzhao asked. "The fake death medicine that my wife gave you that day, have you used it?" Shen Haoxi smiled slightly and kept silent. Gu Fuzhao didn't ask any further questions, but just sighed. Those who have left cannot be persuaded, but those who come can still be persuaded. If you want to stay, then stay. I will call Youyan and Shi Pei, and let's think about what to do next. Patting Shen Haoxi on the shoulder, he opened the tent flap and walked out into the wind and snow. Shen Haoxi looked down at his shoulder that Gu Fuzhao had just patted. Talking to Gu Fuzhao was an extremely comfortable thing. He seemed to have a magical ability to pull people who were stuck in the quagmire back to the present world with a smile. Just like that day when he came back riddled with wounds, Wu Youyan and Shi Pei learned that their provisions had been stolen. One was furious, threatening to single-handedly break into the army camp to get their provisions back, and the other was disappointed and depressed. Only Gu Fuzhao, after a long silence, said in his usual lazy tone, "That's enough. What's done is done. There is no use being angry. Anger will only make us lose our minds. None of those long faces now. How about I play the Qi Shen for you, and we will talk serious business after you calm down." In this world, only people like Gu Fuzhao can get to know intimately and spend a lifetime together with Imperial Physician Lin. guys, it's going to be here. You know what it is. So, brace yourselves.